Right, welcome to this week's episode of Work the Left Side. I am joined this week by the man behind True Grit Wrestling here in Leeds, Mr. James Carr. How's it going, man? You all right?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on. How are you doing?
I've been looking to. I seem to have been all around the country with other promotions and wrestlers and stuff, but I never really had a chance to focus on the Leeds scene that much. And also living in Leeds, I know we've got a good scene kicking around. I know we've got some awesome talent kicking around as well. So yeah, I'm finally happy to be able to put a spotlight on Leeds.
That's good because you've been to a lot of lead shows before. I'm sure I've seen you post a lot of stuff on social media over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I was there way back when. I can't remember the name of the nightclub, but on Kirklees Road when you first did
Control.
Yes, that's the one.
That was yeah, my first ever show that I promoted. Well, not the first one, but the first True Grit show I ever promoted was there. I did a War of the Roses there.
Yeah, that was in what was Prism? Was it Prism? It's a nightclub that always changes its name or something. I think.
Yeah, it's Prism now. That was the third one. That was the True Grit Games. So we had two at Control on Kirkstall Road. That was the TG Cup and the War of the Roses. TG Cup was really good. That one. Did you go to that one where it was Rampage and
I think I went to
final?
Yeah.
I think that's probably. I think my favorite show that I've ever done, like in hindsight, because it was so good, and I think the performances by Rampage and Chris Travis were just phenomenal. Obviously, we afterwards learned what Chris Travis was going through. He'd actually been diagnosed at that point, and to put in such a performance, I think was incredible. Yeah.
The dude was like, we kind of saw, when he got the all clear the first time round, his determination and his, grit to get back into the, well, no pun intended, but yeah, the actual, his grit into the ring, into shape, everything like that. The guy was just dedicated and he loved wrestling. And I think that was the of it.
Yeah, I started out with him years ago in a little school in Sheffield. A few of us went there, but he was one of the ones. And he was just when he started, he was always very talented, but he was just like really skinny little kid. And then I moved to London, and I took a bit of time out of wrestling, and then suddenly he not only got physically really big, but also just really good wrestler, did all the stuff with PCW, and I was like, wow, he's a superstar now. That's amazing. Having main events with Chris Masters and stuff. And it just shows you the sort of sticking with it and putting your all into something. And there's a few wrestlers that have managed to do that. It was good.
Yeah, I mean, especially also we'll focus on the lead thing in a minute, but I mean, the UK scene as a whole over the last few years has been thrust into the spotlight with the WWE UK, NXT UK. We actually had World of Sport, what they attempted to do. A lot of the promotions obviously be on streaming services now and on TV and stuff. So I think a lot of the guys have, but you can kind of see when you look in WWE now, there's not just one or two British guys there. You've got a good nearly dozen UK talent on the main roster now.
Yeah.
That scene.
Crazy. When I first got into wrestling, the only one really was the British Bulldog, and I guess the British Bulldog's a tag team. But I when I first started watching, and it was WWF, it was around sort of early '90s, so it was just British Bulldog, and I sort of knew about William Regal, but I didn't watch WCW as much then. So, and then obviously the mid '90s, I started to watch both, but that was because at the time, I really wanted to be a wrestler. And I was like, oh, there's only one guy that's managed to have done it. It was impossible for an English guy to do it. Now, there's so much opportunities. It's great to see how our scene has thrived over the years. And I think you've been watching shows for many years. I don't know if you remember the days where you'd have working men's clubs, and if you got 50 in, that was a good crowd. You'd be like, wow, good crowd tonight. And and it was. And sometimes you'd be on these shows in a town you'd never heard of, and there'd be 20 or 30 people in the crowd, and you think it was amazing. And it was amazing. It was fun. But
that's it. I mean, there's a lot to be said for both kind of sides of there. I mean, those little shows are always fun. Generally, family pack shows aren't the kind of thing. They just but yeah, for years I was kind of said, that was classed as, if you got to 100 people, you were smashing it, weren't you, kind of thing. And it's just
Wow, you got
Um,
triple figures.
yeah, that's it exactly. It's like, oh, wow, 3 figures. It was either that or just what you saw like at the holiday camps. That was pretty much the only one place you would see wrestling on a regular basis. Was like if you went to like Butlins or somewhere like that.
Yeah,
So,
I've done my fair share of those as well.
but a lot of people have, and a lot of people swear by them. A lot of people that I've spoken to, say they're absolutely amazing, especially if you're a character wrestler, because it helps you to develop your character so much because you rely on it more in like the holiday
It
camps.
does. Yeah, it helps your character, and I think it just gets you comfortable in the ring. It's not just about, and I think sometimes almost a stigma with that. Or there was historically, it's like holiday camps. It's all about characters and like pumping up the crowd. But some of the matches on there like would be good, like because a lot of the guys put effort in, and they're really good. But it just gets you comfortable in regularly working in front of a crowd and listening to the crowd as well, and just like knowing that okay, like, yeah, I'm going to do this now, and that will like, yeah, I know that gets a better reaction, and then you can put that into, yeah, we used to call them the indie shows, which are like the
Wow.
holiday camps was like yeah, that was like the touring shows, and then the other ones are indie. Obviously, like everything's indie really, but that was like, yeah, what we said, and it definitely helped with that. And some of the wrestlers that have done really well, it's not a coincidence that a lot of them have come from that holiday camp background because it gives them well-rounded thing. One of the wrestlers we got on Saturday, and I would say probably the best wrestler in the country, Rampage Brown. Like he must have done so many holiday camps back in the day, and then he was a big player on the All Star loop for years, and that's where he made his bread and butter originally.
Yeah, I was going to say he's a name that obviously comes up.
My dogs are going crazy down here. I hope you don't mind.
No, no,
Being on
there he is. Oh wow. Unfortunately, obviously, we've got cats in this house, no dogs, unfortunately.
Oh,
So,
don't see them. She might be barking.
but yeah, Rampage is the name that comes up. I generally speak to a lot of British talent on here, and you rightly so. What you sort of say, one of the best, if not the best, worker in the country at the minute. Not to besmirch anybody else, but I don't think they would take offence at that. I don't think they would take offence to being just under Rampage if that's the way they want to think
I
about
think
it.
the one wrestler that you say is the best, and I can't think of another wrestler that would be like, no, I'm better. Like I mean, everyone like, yeah, because everyone like wants to be the best and stuff. But I think he has sort of got that unanimous vote where everyone's like, no, Rampage is the man.
Yeah.
He's respected by the fans and the wrestlers in the back as well. Just such a well-rounded
I
wrestler.
was speaking to somebody a while ago, and they sort of said that they've when they've wrestled, they've had matches against somebody, weren't very good matches, didn't like working with them. Kind of thought, I'm not working with them again. And then down the line, they got put against them, and there's like, oh crap. And it's like, no, sorry, it's been trained by Rampage. Since you last had a match with him, they've
Yeah,
been trained by Rampage, and that automatically gave him credibility. It's like, oh, okay, right, yeah, fair enough, yeah, we go on. Because they know Rampage is putting through the paces and shared his wisdom, that automatically made them better. And it was like, yeah, cool, I'll work with him now. Then. So it's
yeah,
kind of like we dubbed him as like the Obi-Wan of British wrestling at that point.
he
It
is
seems
a
like
trick.
everybody of any credibility or anybody to a certain point has had some training or interactions or learnings from Rampage.
Yeah, I've seen that with some of the wrestlers because I've been sort of out of the promoting game for I guess since before COVID. My last show big show I promoted was January 2020. That's a little nose popping up there. And then this is like I did a smaller one in Sheffield a couple of weeks ago, but this is like the first bigger one. And the talent that was on my shows then, or I was wrestling with, they've improved so much. And someone who falls in that category was trained by Rampage, Gia Adams, who like she hits so hard and is like so confident in the ring for someone who's not been doing it that long comparatively. And
Yeah, she's still quite a rookie. It's only been a few years, hasn't it? She's just
I think so. I know because I was actually a tag team with her at North. It was Boris and Gia Adams. Like it was a random tag team, but it kind of worked. And at the time, she was quite new and she was just getting into it. And so that was sort of how I knew her. And then the difference from that, and she wasn't bad or anything then, but the difference from then to now is crazy. Like, she's a well-polished athlete and just like very confident in the ring and has that same sort of movement. And you ever watch a Rampage match, like his positioning is just spot on, and like he sort of takes a very dominant central position in the ring, and it's very natural. And you can see that in his students straight away. They're sort of doing the same. They have the same sort of posture about them. And it's good to see. We've got quality trainers in this country. I mean, there's a lot of them.
Well, that's it now, isn't it? It's like, we've had such amazing talent for the last 10, 15 years, and they're now passing it on.
Yeah.
But, the next batch potentially should be, going up a level kind of thing. So they're getting trained by these people. But yeah, like I say, Rampage is next level. And it's a double-edged sword. I'm glad to see him back. It shows like True Grit and stuff like that. But obviously, you don't want anyone not to be under the umbrella of the WWE because of it pays well kind of thing. So
Yeah,
gutted obviously he's lost that opportunity. But
a shame for a lot of the guys. Like, but at the same time, they've had that great experience, which at one time you wouldn't have been able to have in this country. So it's great, and now they're a bigger name on the indie scene as well. So good for them too.
So, like I say, look at it as an experience, look at it as a learning curve, take all the positives you can from it, and you're a better wrestler, a better human being for it, hopefully. So, but yeah, as a fan, Pop's huge when you announced him to be at Redemption. I was like, yes, he's back. So that was always one of the highlights of going to like True Grit or quick mention of like Tide or the other company in Leeds. Guarantee you would be on one of those two shows at any given point. And he sells tickets for me, Rampage, as soon as you see him on a show. That's it.
He was the obvious choice because it was a shame with Dara Diablo. That had actually been, they were, Serico and Dara Diablo were meant to have that championship match back in March 2020 because Dara had won the Rumble. Then obviously we had COVID. So I was like, then we started again. I was like, I want to see that match. Both of them had really improved since the Rumble. Like both in Serico and Dara sort of gone off in their own like directions, and they look really unique now, and they're both like in ring works really good. So I was like, great, we've got a great title match, and then he suddenly got injured. I was like, who am I going to replace? And again, like that was going to be such a good match, but you have to make the replacement a banger because you don't want people to be like, oh yeah, okay, you replaced it, and that's going to be good, but I want to see the other one. And I'm sure people still do want to see the other one, but when you announce Rampage Brown, it's like, oh yeah, that's like
there you go.
that's it. Well, not I don't want to say. Well, I don't think Dar would even mind saying that because it's Rampage Brown, but yeah, it's incredible, and it's going to be a real like coming out party for Serico as well because he's put in so much work over the last few years. He's never had a singles match with Rampage Brown, and I think that those two are going toe to toe. It's going to be amazing. His match he had a couple of weeks ago at Festive Forearms with Brady Phillips it was a really good, like what I call like sort of traditional wrestling match, very back and forth, very hard hitting, very sort of main event, what you want in a main event. And I really enjoyed it. And I think there's going to be more of that with Rampage, and it's going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, the guy, obviously I've been around since, like I say, the start of True Grit and stuff, and he's put so much effort, he's transformed himself. He looks like in the best shape I've ever seen him kind of thing. And and he looks like a champion now. Whereas not to have, when I first started watching True Grit, he looks like a mid-carder. Somebody will come on or even the song, I can't remember the name of this, Hooks on a Feeling, that got the crowd pumped.
That was
Everybody got behind him.
He was really new then. He wasn't meant to be on that show because he was he was against Grady, wasn't he? And his opponent had pulled out the day of the show, or I had to read. Oh no, it was meant to be against Connors, and Cyanide had pulled out the day of like a few hours before the show, like, and then so I put Connors in the main event, the 6-way, and I needed an opponent, and I just said to Serico, like, can you do this? And so it was really unexpected, but he was like the least experienced person on that show, and now he's like in the main event and the belt, and he's one of the most experienced, like proper professional on there.
And he looks the part now as well, kind of thing. Because like he was in good shape back then, but he looks like a wrestler now, kind of thing. I think he's got himself, ring shape
Yeah.
That's
Sorry,
what
I
we
meant to
call
say
it.
Gracie, not Grady, when I said earlier. Alex Gracie, who was against.
That's it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
People will be thinking, was he against Grado? I'm like, no.
No, that was a joke. You just mentioned that one, did you? But yeah, that's I said the 2 days we spoke about this on Twitter a while ago. The War of the Roses thing that he did at True Grit back in the day. I would definitely love to see a follow up to that.
I was thinking about that randomly this morning. I was like, I wonder if there's capacity to do that again at some point.
I think Yorkshire and Lancashire have both got an amazing pool of talent. Yeah. It'd be, yeah, if you could get on board.
Because I'd say it's almost probably more Yorkshire talent, but there's almost half of them are from Lancashire actually. Like we got Lana and Tonga from Manchester. Kev Lloyd's coming over from that way as well. It's got Priscilla, who sometimes wrestles, doing ring announcing this weekend, but that's coming from Manchester. There's a few more that we have as well that come over from that way.
Yeah. And so there's a few. I mean, I know you've had Joey Hayes on previously.
He's someone I really want to have on it. I actually wanted to have him on the one we got in a couple of weeks in Sheffield, but it wasn't available. But he was. He's a very underrated talent, isn't he? And he has been. He's sort of like the guy that everyone's like, oh yeah, he's really underrated. He should be everywhere. And they've been saying that for years, and it's like, yeah, he should be, and he still should be. He's brilliant.
But that's the thing. He's like, as much as it's like he's a hidden treasure kind of thing. If you know his awesomeness, you can kind of take a little bit of comfort in that. And you can be a little bit gloaty about it, like, I know how good he is. Even if nobody else does, kind of thing.
He was in the first ever True Grit match, actually. Yeah,
I remember him at the club. Was he? I'm trying to remember. I was trying to think earlier about all the matches that I saw. Then my memory from that show was Fern coming out with Kirby and Travis.
Oh right, sure.
For me, it's just I think it's the whole Travis thing. But yeah, just having Project Ego coming out, because I always kind of remember.
They're against Blackpool Blondes, weren't they? Obviously, JD's doing very well now, but he was pretty new at the time. Yes, that was we did 2 War of the Roses, but that was like the big one that we did, and it was I did like that concept. Harley Hudson we had on debut a couple of weeks ago. We're gonna have her on more shows, but she's a real up and comer from that side, is doing really well. Got what again, like I'm not sure. I think she's newish, but got a really unique look and great in the ring as well. She wrestled Ivy, who's also fantastic. That was a great match.
That's well, let's talk about Saturday. I purchased my tickets earlier, so I'm definitely going to be there.
Got there just in time. Yeah, we're
2 of us there.
Running short on tickets, which I'm pleased to say. We're down to about 20 left. So it's standing room only, which is great.
Yeah, I thought I had to get. I ended up getting 2 standing because literally the 2 beneath sold out.
They've been sold for a while. Yeah. So pleased with that. Definitely.
Awesome. So what's the obviously obviously selling out plenty of tickets. Only standing only left. This will be uploaded tomorrow. So if you're watching it and you haven't got your ticket, go get one now because it could sell out.
Definitely, it's unlikely that they'll be available on the door, and if they are available on the door, they'll be really limited. Like we'll have to turn people away. So I'm hoping,
because I can remember, back in the day, we just used to turn up to shows without even thinking about it and just buy a ticket on the door. I wouldn't even second guessed not being able to get kind of thing.
I've had a few people message me tonight, even say, "Oh, can I buy on the door?" And I'm like, "I'm not, kidding. Like, no, you can't. Like, this isn't motor talk. Like, I can't guarantee it," which is a great place to be in. And really glad because we obviously had the problem with it being postponed, which was just so unexpected. We'll get into what happened there in a minute, but that a few people had refunds, but the fans were so good. Like mainly, I'd say maybe about 20% asked for refunds, and now we've sold even more tickets than we had then. And I was like, yeah, this is great. Like it just shows like. I was almost surprised, but really pleased how much like loyalty we had for a brand that hadn't put a show on for 3 years. And I was like, well, this is amazing. I really appreciate that. So it's great.
I
So
think that speaks volumes for the shows that you had put on previously. And I also think, especially with probably a lot of the fans being Leeds, local and stuff, they know sort of some of the, like, they'll know of yourself and what you've done elsewhere and things like that. And it's just, I say it's a loyalty and it's an appreciation, but as of when you do put shows on, to show that support.
yeah, no, it was good because I think because I personally I felt terrible, like because I found out at 1 o'clock on the day. The venue rang me up and they said, "Oh yeah, the the license is the wrong license." I was like, "What are you talking about? We talked about this 2 months ago, and you said you had the right license." And they said, "No, council have rung us up, and it's the wrong one," which was frustrating. But the venue doesn't know about wrestling and the specific licenses, and they just said we're covered professional wrestling, which the way it works is every show you usually get a temporary license, and wrestling falls in a strange category that's not sports or entertainment. It's in this weird category that is like for boxing and darts, and most promoters will know, well, not every one of them, but most of them know that because you fill out a temporary events form and you tick the box that's relevant to wrestling. And I normally do that for every show, but at this time they're like, no, you don't need to do that. And because they're an events like venue, I thought, okay, like they're covered for every event, and they thought that as well because they did it, and then they got caught. What the annoying thing is, like, yes, someone, and we don't know who, but an anonymous caller called up the council on the day of the show, and it's crap that stuff still goes on in wrestling. But I tried, like, I try and not get too angry about it, and I'm like, okay, I only can control the things that I can control, and right now I have to make sure the fans are all right. And I went down and spoke to fans that turned up, and sent out emails to everyone, spoke to the wrestlers, offered refunds. Majority of the wrestlers were really good and just said, "No, you don't need to pay me, it's fine," which was, again, so that the loyalty from the fans and the wrestlers just took me back because yeah, it was great that the way they reacted. And in a way, I was glad that this happened now and not in 2 years when we're a really established company. And I hope instead of like hundreds, like I hope we're getting thousands in show. That's sort of my goal for like sort of 3 to 5 years time. So, and now, yeah, I know to have that, not only get confirmation from the venue, but have a physical copy of that license. And if I need to, call the council as well and just be like, yeah, are we covered for this weekend? And that's always going to be a top priority. And I think it's a shame that there are still people like that in wrestling because it affects the whole industry. The people that asked for refunds, like, they're going to be put off every local show now because it does make it look bad. And I hated that as well because I saw some people like say, "Oh, typical British wrestling," and I couldn't really argue with that because even though like it's a bit of a dickish thing to say, it's like, yeah, like it's really unprofessional what's happened, and I wish it hadn't happened to my promotion. But
Yeah.
the upside is we've had 2 months to sort it out, and now the show's going to be even better. Yeah, the card's amazing. We sold even more tickets. Yeah, and just, yeah, little tweaks I've made to the show is going to make it even better. So I think that'll be a distant memory.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we get on talking about the card. We've got on a.
Go for it. Well, I was going to sort of say though is like, obviously, if you long as you just use that as a learning experience, like you sort of said, just if they say that they've got the license, just double check.
Yeah,
That you've learned that,
if
and
there's any
it's never going to happen again, is it? So
if there's any sort of new promoters watching this, make sure you have an events license and have a physical copy that actually so you can see that it's covered because not all venues will know. They may think they have the right license, but they don't because they don't know about wrestling because it is such a weird law. And I think it's even maybe even different in different counties and different councils. Um, so just make sure you've got it and make sure you got your insurance because sadly there's still like, yeah, like malicious actors out there who just want to like, yeah, make rather than build up whatever they're doing, or maybe they're not even doing anything wrestling, they're just a
yeah,
dick, I know, but
yeah, it's just,
rather than, yeah, build up whatever
somebody you've annoyed at some
they want
point.
to take other people down. I don't, yeah, like I wouldn't anyone. I would never do that to any, even people that I don't like. Like I wouldn't do that because I concentrate, yeah, on my own thing. But there we go. Some people do it.
You're a good man. So yeah, let's discuss the show. Well, you like to say it's stacked, man, from top to bottom. Another name I'm happy to see back on the scene is Liam. I believe he's going Liam Slater now, not Liam Lazarus anymore. It's back to being Liam Slater. Glad to see him back, and I believe he's on the show as well.
Yeah, he's against Kevin Lloyd in a pure grit match, which will be. I don't know if you saw in the True Grit TV that we did leading up to this. So we did six, and yeah, definitely if you can catch that before the show on Saturday, because it's everything on there basically builds up to this. So the way that I'd say this is like a pilot, but so this show's called True Grit Redemption on Saturday, and we recorded six sort of half-hour to 45-minute episodes called Road to Redemption, and they are building up to the show on Saturday, and this show on Saturday is meant to be the season finale. And then in 2 weeks in Sheffield, we record the next six episodes for season 2. And then in March, we got our next big show in Leeds, which is the end of season 2. So
Oh wow!
It's because I've noticed like people's viewing habits have changed, and everybody loves like seasons on Netflix and Amazon Prime. And I was just like, can we do this with wrestling? So this is really a pilot. I don't know if people like. It doesn't seem like you were even aware that we're doing that, so maybe we need to promote that a bit more.
I've seen bits of it, but I don't. I'm not. I'm on social media to plug my stuff, but I don't sit there and scroll through the stuff. So that's why I generally don't. If I see something, I'll share it or like it, but I don't go looking for stuff, unfortunately, anymore.
So after the show's finished on Saturday, we'll then have a full season we can put on YouTube, and I'll probably promote that a little bit so people can just watch that. And that's like in its own little shell, and it's all connected. Because the problem, I'll get back to talk about Liam in a second, but the problem I always found promoting shows, because I really like stories and like having stories build up, both when I was wrestling and when I'm promoting. And I was always trying to do that, but you'd have such big gaps between the shows that I was like, there's only a handful of fans that care. And it gets to the point where the wrestlers are probably more bothered about it. And me as a promoter is more bothered about it than anyone. And that's not really how it should be. Like the fans should really care. So I'm trying to do this to make it see people are not, it's not just a standalone show. Like the whole thing, like, yeah, there's sort of a story going into it, and there will be for each bigger show. And that's really an attempt why I'm trying to do it this way.
That makes perfect sense, because otherwise it's just exhibition matches for the sake of exhibition matches,
which I want to get away from, because I think there's companies doing that like so well, and there's some amazing wrestling, but I think I do think that's lacking a bit, having that sort of storyline element to it, because it's too far in between shows. And some companies do regular enough shows so they can keep it going and they put content together. But I just like having a look. I just thought also like little half-hour episodes. It's just something you can watch like when you get home, and it's not too taxing. Like even back in the day when you'd watch Raw and it was only an hour, like that was it's just nice. And then you got the big 3-hour pay-per-view, and this is sort of, I guess I'm a 90s wrestling mark, so that's
I like this. Now I know about it. I'm well on board. But I've told Mans up. I try and keep in touch with stuff that's going on with things like that. But I totally missed out on this. I do go through. I think I'll go through periods of not going on social for a week or two. So if it's been on there during that time, I've totally missed it, unfortunately.
But also because of the postponement of the show, all the timings got messed up, because all this was done like pre-November, and now we've had a huge gap in between. So I think unfortunately it did lose a bit of steam, True Grit TV, because of that. But again, like I think when we got the full season, I'll do another round of promoting and hopefully get some feedback from fans, see what they think.
Well, it sounds like an awesome idea. Like I said, I'm with you in the sense of stories, building up to something. And like sort of said, the actual show that you go to live, you get to see the climax and everything that you'd seen on YouTube and stuff building up. That just adds to the experience of going to see a live show.
Yeah.
So I think I've talked about it with many people before as well. It's the moments in wrestling people remember more than the matches. I'd love to see a 5-star match, but in 10 years' time, I'm talking like when Steve Austin got run over. I'm not talking about a classic match kind of thing. We talk about the moments, and you've got the opportunity with True Grit TV to build those up.
Yeah, and it is that. Well, think of WrestleMania, like it's all the moments that you remember, isn't it? Like Hogan slamming Andre, like that wasn't good wrestling, but it was good wrestling in the same way because it was such a good
We're
moment.
still talking about it.
Yeah, Undertaker losing his streak. Do you remember where you were when that happened? Like, yeah, I remember. I was in a bar in Leeds actually. There's a place that you go down. I think
Carpe Diem.
yeah, we were watching it in there, and everyone's watching it. Everyone's having a good time watching WrestleMania. And then the whole place was just stunned, and it was like it was awesome. Like that was, yeah, such a moment. Crazy.
But yes, so Liam,
Talk
obviously
about
back on the
Liam
scene.
Grit, yeah.
Yeah. So
So
a
for
True
the
Grit
reason I was
pure match.
talking about True Grit TV was because we've introduced this Pure Grit division. Um, and Liam and Kev have already had two Pure Grit matches against different wrestlers on True Grit TV. And the way it works is there's 3 5-minute rounds. It's
Oh,
submission only, so no pinfalls. And you can have knockout or DQ as well, but so
okay.
far every match has ended by submission. But then if it goes a distance, there's 3 referees we have on the night. One's in the ring and 2 on the outside. They act as the 3 judges, and they will pick the winner. So it's a very I guess it's almost like shoot wrestling in the way that it's submission based wrestling. And it's got a very I don't want to say sort of MMA, more like Pancras style. I don't know if you've ever seen the Pancras shows that
Yeah,
both
but the rounds, that's old school world of sport, isn't it? Like, back
it
in the day,
was
those guys did
it's
rounds.
Yeah, I didn't just want to make it World of Sport rules because I wanted to put a modern twist on it. So that's why I got rid of pinfalls because I think the MMA culture is in pro wrestling now, and I think and grappling, and people do really like that, and they like that style. And this is really a division where the good wrestlers and the people that maybe have done like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and submission wrestling and other forms of grappling and strikers as well. Like we had Dan Evans on one of the Pure Grit matches, and he was like, yeah, smacking the hell out of Kev. And it's a very different match, but it's one of my favorite things we've done on True Grit TV because they're so different. It's a unique style of match, and I think it's unique for the wrestlers as well. But for Liam and Kev, it really suits them as well. Like Liam is he's a great very grappling based wrestler anyway, and I know he's done bits of martial arts as well. He's done some grappling, Brazilian jiu-jitsu and MMA stuff. Anyone that follows Kevin Lloyd knows that he does all the catch wrestling. He's done competitions, all that sort of stuff. In fact, I think he even teaches at the Snake Pit now, like in the Snake Pit. Like, I know he trained there and he was teaching somewhere. And I think it is the Snake Pit in Wigan where he takes his own classes. So he's obviously, really good at that style. So that should be, I'm really looking forward to that match on Saturday. I don't think they've certainly not faced each other in this style of match, but I can't remember even seeing these two face off in a singles match. If they did, it would have been probably more Sexy Kev versus Liam Lazarus, whereas now we've got Kevin Lloyd against Liam Slater, like in that what they want to be doing and what they're really good at. So and talking about great trainers before, Liam is another one. And he's running PPW down in Sheffield. And the PPW, we've got a lot of the PPW students on our shows, and they've improved so much. Crash Boat is just amazing now. One of the best tag teams in the country. Um, Two girls who were really new, like 3 years ago, Natalie Sykes and Rebecca Resner, they've improved so much. They had a match on True Grit TV, and I was like, oh, they got really good now. And that's because they've been going to Pursuit in Sheffield and they're taking it really seriously. And Liam's very good at. He's like, okay, what do you want from wrestling? And then he'll help you go to whatever goal it is, whether it's very small, you just want to do the odd show, or you want to get further and go as far as possible. And it seems to I went down sort of join in for one training session there, and it's great what they're doing. It's certainly one of the best ones that I've seen. That's very fast moving and keeps it going the whole time.
I've seen a lot of the stuff they post. I've seen some of their stuff on socials, and they seem to post like what you like the routines that they train in the ring and stuff like that. From what I've
Yeah.
seen, he's very much in grasp with the whole sort of social. He's wanting to get everything out on the social as well, so you can kind of see the training in progress.
Yeah, no, they're good at that. And Nathan Black as well, who he owns it with, who he may not want me saying that on here actually, but he those two together seem to run the place really well, and it's got a really professional feel about it. Social media, it's good, a really well run business, really well run wrestling classes. I'd recommend it to anyone that's wanting to be a wrestler, because I started in Sheffield years ago, and my place that I went definitely wasn't as good or as professional as that. Like, a problem you have with a lot of wrestling schools, because there's so many people in the class, you'll go there and you're sort of stood around the whole time not really doing much, and then you might get in the ring and do a little bit, and then you're just sort of watching but not really being included. And I found the school down there was very good at, like, it was difficult, but everyone was getting in and doing stuff, and if you're newer, then it wasn't too overwhelming, because Liam would be good with you, and he'd say, okay, yeah, just do this or try this, and it was fine, and everyone was progressing, but it felt like you're constantly doing something, but at the same time, it wasn't overwhelming, uh,
Yeah,
which even for me, like, I just wanted a session, sort of see what it was like, because I haven't trained in like 3 years, and I actually had a career-ending injury 3 years ago, which is why I wrestle anymore. But even for me, with I've got sort of long-term hip problems. Like, it was great to be back in the ring, and it was great to be there. So yeah, I'd recommend going to that school. And his match with Kev, and I'd recommend going train. And Kev, obviously, yeah, is a trainer over the other side of the Pennines as well. So he's a great person to. Yeah, so we got a little War of the Roses there,
I
haven't
can
we?
say you got it there. Huh? You got it set up already. It could be
I
like a
know.
prelude to it all. So I can do the rematch.
You have to go with Leeds. Well, he's not actually Leeds, but I think Bradford.
Yeah, yeah, we'll cast him. So, yeah, I saw him way back, from in BWA. I think that's the first time I ever saw him.
Yeah.
Was in Dean Bradford. Yeah, I had him, Nash, and a few other guys. I think that have still floating around. So it's been around for a long, long time, only. I started off young though. So I always kind of forget how old he is. I always still think of him as being quite young, Liam, but he's actually, I think he's older than he appears.
Yeah, he's certainly been doing it along. Like, I remember he was fairly new when so I was living abroad for a bit, and I came back in 2013, 14, and that was when I got into wrestling again after quite a few years off. And I think he was fairly new then, but that was all. So 10 years ago, we're talking. Yeah, so he's been around a fair bit.
That's it. So we got that match. Yeah, so that in itself, that match will stand out purely because of the rules. Like, say you try something new, which is awesome. I've had it in my head for years. I remember talking to somebody about the rounds. I wanted to see somebody try and bring rounds back in, even if it was just like a certain kind of match or for a whole show. I don't think it'd work for a whole show, but yeah, for one match, it makes it different enough that it stands out and it gets people's attention. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. What's the other matches you got hyped for the show?
So we've got, yeah, tag match with Crash Boat, and against Jet Marshall and Joe Wade, who are not usually a tag team. So actually, that's usually Jet Marshall and Leon Slater are a tag team, but Leon wasn't available for this one. So Joe Wade is actually in a tag team with Alan Kay. So they're tagging together, but they're also four of the best, yeah, cruiserweights in the country. That'll be, yeah, really high flying, amazing match. We got Tonga against Lana Austin. They were a tag team on True Grit TV, but Lana, I think she's done this before, turned her back on Tonga, so they're sort of former friends going against each other. We've got a fatal four-way, which's got BA Rose in, another one who's really come out in the last sort of year or so. Like, great, yeah, great sort of brawler, hard hitting, like really good wrestler as well. Um, Versus Sean Only, Wing Commander Nash, who we were talking about before, and of course the replacement Ace Matthews, which I
Wow.
very much enjoyed doing the replacement video for that, because it was meant to be Chuck Woods, and he wasn't able to make the last one, so then it was replaced with Ace Matthews, which he just loves winding people up on Twitter, which I find hilarious, but he is overly annoying, and hopefully he gets crap kicked out of him on Saturday.
I can see him getting stomped by Mr. Only at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. Sean Only with his kicks. Ace Matthews may have to watch out for them. And then
I just want to see Nash and Sean face off just for the pure intensity and the pure comedy.
very different, aren't they? Like, and every time, well, they sort of faced off on True Grit TV to set up the match as well, and it's such a difference, and you can feel the anger from Sean Only when he's around Commander Nash, because like ultra serious, pissed off to like fun loving, like being silly all the time. And so that should be an interesting match with those four, definitely. Some entertaining characters. Then we got Rio and Charlie Morgan. So these are the first few shows I've ever had Charlie Morgan on. And I don't think she's wrestled in Yorkshire that much. I certainly can't remember her wrestling here.
I've never seen her.
I wanted to get someone in a bit different, and Rio's obviously done a lot of title and stuff, and I just think she's great, like one of the sort of hardest hitting, like intense, like women wrestler, well, just wrestlers in the country. And those two, that's a no DQ, no holds barred match, which because on True Grit TV they had a match and it ended up in a double DQ. The poor referee Neil almost got clobbered with chairs. So we made a DQ match between them, and that one's there's going to be lots of weapons involved, hard hitting match. That should be fantastic. We got another tag team match. I talked about them before. Rebecca Resner, Natalie Sykes, and they're against Ivy and Gia Adams, which again, all four of them have just I think we've talked about all of them on this podcast. They've all really improved so much over the last few years. I think Ivy, must be like one of the MVPs on these True Grit TVs that we've done. She actually stood in for me on the first show because Charlie Morgan's opponent couldn't be there, so she did that, and she did a tag match, and she did a segment, all in like in the first set of recordings. And she was really one of the standout wrestlers on that show, because she's a good wrestler anyway, but so vocal and like really gets the crowd going. And it was only like in our recording studio with a few people, but it just got it got everyone going and got the atmosphere. And I think that match will be great. Then we've got Commander Sterling, Stephanie Sterling versus Nathan Black. Both of them fairly new. Like, I don't know if they were even wrestling when True Grit had their show pre-COVID, or they were just starting to. Again, very, very strong characters. Nathan Black is my co-commentator on True Grit TV, and honestly, like, he makes it. Like, I'm like the sort of the more straight-laced one. I guess I'm technically play-by-play, and he's the color commentator, but he's such a good performer, he's such a dick, but I really enjoy like bouncing off him. And he really made the shows. I think the commentary's brilliant because of him, and I guess I'm there, but I really like working with him. But whilst he's doing commentary, is winding at wrestlers, and Commander Stephanie Sterling was one of the ones that he wound up and ended up attacking from behind, and then ended up getting into an altercation. And see, you need to watch True Grit TV so you can see all of this. I think the future ones will put highlight videos out of all this stuff. But Sterling's sort of started off, well, is still a YouTuber. They do YouTube videos for all the gaming and stuff. Got a huge following in America, and sort of got into wrestling through that, and just became a really, really good character. Really popular with the fans on our show, and really pleased with both of them. Just how strong they're, so different in their characters, but so over the top as well. And I think that will be, it will definitely get the crowd involved in that match. I'm looking forward to that one. And then, of course, we talked about it a bit, the main event, Encerica versus Rampage Brown, which I think will just be incredible. It's I think this is this, I mean, he's already there, but this is a night where it's really going to put Encerico on the map in terms of going win, lose or draw. Like he's, yeah, against Rampage Brown, one of the best in the country. It'll be a real test for him, and I think it will be, yeah, it'll be an incredible match. And I say, like when he first started, he wasn't called Encerico, he was called Disco Wes. You may never have seen him do that.
Oh no, so Disco Wes. Oh, that's told me about him. So I thought you said he was on a tag team with them way back away in the
they
day.
were called Boogie and the Geek.
Yeah, that's it.
And like he was good then, but then he obviously he did Encerico and sort of embraced his Ugandan roots a bit more and did that as his gimmick. But now he's still doing that, but I feel it's even more authentic, because what I really want from True Grit is the brand is True Grit. So I want everyone to be like hardworking and gritty, but I want everyone to be like genuine as well. Like we've obviously got gimmicks, but they're reality based gimmicks, and they're kind of like they're the person but times by 10. And
turned up to 11 kind of thing.
Yeah. So what I always use myself as an example when I'm speaking to the wrestlers. I'm like, I wouldn't. So I used to play Russian character Boris Kozlov, you may have seen. I'm like, I wouldn't book Boris on my own shows now, because that's what I'm moving away from, because I want it to be like genuine reality based gimmicks. Because I think when fans know what they're seeing is like the real person, and like they're really like passionate about it, and they're all the people on my show, they're very animated, but there is an element of the real person in that character they're playing. And in Serico, like, has obviously really got Ugandan roots, but lived there, then moved to England, Yorkshire, Sheffield, and then Leeds, and I think it's sort of merging the two things just works really well.
Yeah, I mean, you look back. There's a reason character wrestlers never really get past the mid card. Sorry, mid card. I'm sorry, I've been watching too much Vikings. They never get past the mid card because they're enjoyable, but you can't take them seriously enough to have to be world champion. Like, or your big time wrestlers like your Austins, your Rocks, your Flairs, Macho Man. They're all themselves turned up to 11.
Yeah.
Your character wrestlers are they're great, they're entertaining. You know, I love them. There's obviously we need them, but it's the 11s that go on to become.
I think you definitely need characters still, but there's a way you can do it. So look at like Wing Commander Nash, like his character is he's a pilot, but watching Wing Commander Nash, like that's him. You did a podcast with him, like that's him turned up to. I don't know. He's always turned up to 11, but
He's turned up, or say he's turned up to 12. Yeah,
yeah,
he always has to get that one extra. So it's like
and you know that one of the other things that I said within Serico is I was like, you need to drop the accent, because when you do interviews and stuff like this, and I did it as Boris, like you still do it in character, and it was quite good. But I think people like to see the person behind the wrestler sometimes. And if you're doing like an accent that's not your real voice all the time, and even when you're like chatting to fans after the show and stuff, it's just not. It's like funny, but it's not genuine. And I think there's just a slight element of that's missing, and there's certainly, like, I'm not going to say there's not room for characters in wrestling. I'm not, Boris isn't the only one I've done several characters in my time. But I think for True Grit at the moment, yes, reality-based gimmicks is certainly the way that I want to go. It's not technically an adult show, but I want it to appeal, I guess, more to an educated audience. So it's not design just, we have families and kids there, but it's not a very sort of kiddie pantomime show. And I think from the one we did a couple of weeks ago, we've reached that right balance where it's still good for your sort of educated adult wrestling fan, but the families that do come, there's still they still enjoy it as well, which is it just I guess it just means there's not like loads of swearing and loads of gore and stuff, which you might which I guess that's the main difference between an over 18 show and a not over it. But saying that, there was still a bit of swearing on our last one, and I think there was a bit of blood as well. So I don't know what I'm talking about, mate. but I don't think there's enough to classify it as an 18. The families that went still definitely had a good time, and it wasn't too much.
When you're watching a film now or anything like that, I think you can get away with one fuck. You can still get a 12 certificate.
Yeah.
There you go. That's it. There's one bit of blood and one bit of swearing.
That's what we say. Truegate Wrestling. We can get away with one fuck. That'd be our tagline.
Oh, that'd be awesome. So yeah, I mean, as I said, the show. So I mean, what do you think going forwards? Maybe doing some like did previously. I mean, you've done shows at nightclubs before. For if you ever did want to put on that more sweary, bloodier show, try and find a balance. Like 1 month you do that, next month you do the family. Well, not the family show, but your normal gritty show. Or
I don't think so. Those shows you watched at the nightclubs back in the day, I don't think they needed an age limit really, because they were hard hitting, weren't they? But
it was just good wrestling though. It wasn't like it wasn't like you was trying to be trying to think of somebody ECW back in the day or anything like that. It was just good matches. Accessible to all ages really, but it wasn't pantomiming, so it didn't feel like a family show.
Yeah, and they're not. These aren't pantomiming either, because I think I do think that's if you want to get to it, and I want to grow the company and make it, very sort of. That's why I'm trying to build up the YouTube channel. And there's a time and place for the pantomime stuff, but I do think it puts the more adult, serious wrestling fans off. And I guess myself as well. Like I book shows that I like watching, like selfishly, and luckily people seem to share my views as well. So the stuff that is in my head and I put it onto my shows, people generally seem to enjoy them. And I'm lucky as well. I think the wrestlers generally on my shows just seem to go all out and really put everything into them. I've even had fans come up to me before and say, "Oh, did you you pay them more or something, because they seem to do a lot better on your show?" And I've had people say that to me before, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe it's just coincidence, but
maybe it's just because they enjoy doing it more.
Maybe, it was a while. Not recently they've said that. I have had people say that to me before, and I was like, I don't know, maybe it's just coincidence. But I don't watch that many other shows, but I know that the ones I book on my shows definitely look like they go all out and seem to enjoy it. I get great feedback from the wrestlers; they seem to enjoy their matches. And generally, they like their matches and what they're doing. Certainly, don't seem to get many complaints from them, and I don't seem to get many complaints from fans either. They generally seem to enjoy the shows, which is good.
Yeah, which is why, again, I said earlier, I think you've come back from a 3-year hiatus and you've still got that love and loyalty from the fans because of what you did previously, kind of thing. So again, it's volumes. So going forward, then you've got Redemption, you've got the TV show as it's going to be on YouTube. So is it going to be like have you got a plan to run shows every 2 months? Does that sort of seem like the doable timeline? Or
the way that we've got 4 in Leeds this year booked, and I've just confirmed them actually this week. But we've got the one on the 25th of March, which will be the True Grit Games. That's at Left Bank. And then we've got one in Leeds. It's not until August, the next one. And then we've got one at the end of the year in November. And before each of those shows, there'll be a taping in Sheffield for the True Grit TV. We got the first one of those in 2 weeks, and that's open for the public now, so you can buy tickets to that. And then we'll have one in May for the August show, and then we'll have one in September for the November show. So the way that we'll have 4 seasons done then, 6 small. So the way the True Grit TVs work is we record. It's an afternoon show. and an evening one. You can come to one, you can come to both. Some people are making a day of it, and use like a 1 or 2 hour break in between. We record 3 episodes, which will be about a 2 hour show. It'll be about 7 matches on. Then we do episodes 4 to 6 in the evening, and again that's another 7 matches. And then we slowly release them over 6 weeks, and then that builds up to the next bigger show in Leeds, and that's the way we do it. And then we release all that on YouTube, and then we'll have season 2 with 6 small episodes and the live show. And the live show is like the season finale. Like, this is me trying to make True Grit like Netflix, I guess.
Yeah, no,
but that's because it's just, and we may have to tweak it as we go along. Like, I may not do it in seasons eventually, but I just thought that was good because it's quite difficult to maintain like a weekly show, doing it every week because they're pre-recorded. I think that would be quite difficult to do. So that's why we do seasons, have a little break, then we do the next season, and each season will have a different sort of element to it. So like, this one is very much being focused on the championship and in Serico. It was meant to be Dara Diablo, now it's Rampage Brown. The next one is peek behind the curtain. This hasn't been announced yet, but it's going to be very much focused on the women, and it's going to be the True Grit Games. And the main event, well, you went to the True Grit Games years ago, so you know what the main event is. It's it's going to be a sort of no holds barred 6-way elimination match. It's a play on Hunger Games elimination match, and then whoever wins that elimination match will become the first ever True Grit Women's Champion.
okay.
And then the show we have in 2 weeks, which is a recording for that one, that's all the qualified matches for in there. So on that one, we've got 6 different matches, and the winners of those matches are the entrants into the True Grit Games. So that's how it all links together. And again, like, it's experimental stuff at the moment that to me, that's like, I get excited like when I'm booking it, and I get excited by the stories and what's going to happen. I'm like, what could happen, and hopefully fans will feel the same.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just hearing you talk about it, I'm like, okay, I like that. Cause, you can do this, that, and that. Like I say, if you do keep it as seasons, like I say, as long as each season's got a focus, then it makes, that's how, if you, like you said, the TV shows, every series has got a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's all building to something.
Yeah.
The following series is obviously dealing with the aftermath of that, and then moving on to something else.
Yeah.
And that sounds awesome, man. I like it. It sounds like a really good idea. If you can get it to work, mate, I think you're onto a winner.
Yeah, I hope so. I think we just need to make sure people are watching the YouTube, and I guess it's sort of catchy enough for them to do it. I think it was difficult, this one, because we postponed the show, but hopefully once we've got the full season together, people will watch it and it will make sense. And then that'll be good for promoting season 2.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, once you get that the rhythm, once it's back to sort of normality, you've got that flow going. The people who go to the show in Leeds will obviously have heard about for the next one in Leeds, they'll have heard about the qualifying matches for the 6 contestants final. They'll be like, right, okay, if they haven't seen YouTube, they'll be looking into it. Where do we get to see these matches?
Yeah.
They then go back to YouTube, hit subscribe, and then you've got them going forward. So anybody who's missed it, there's reasons for them to go back and find it.
Yeah.
And that's it. Boom.
And it also, I don't know about you, but another thing that I found on performing on shows, you would have a lot of promos and things on like the bigger shows, and I like, a lot of the time the wrestlers cared more than the fans. The fans were like, oh, we just come, like, we don't know anything about this promotion, like, we just come to watch some wrestling. And you got like these all elaborate promos that is like leading up to the matches, and it kind of takes away from the show a little bit because you're trying to do the build up like at the same time on the show, whereas this way, True Grit TV, that's like it's like my Raw and pay-per-views. Again, I'm a 90s mark. Like, these are my hour-long Raws and my like 3-hour pay-per-view every month. That's sort of the format I'm doing, but I'm trying to modernize it by making it into seasons. And obviously it's not on TV, it's on, and I don't know where, or like, ideally I'd like to build up mainly on YouTube because I think that's got the biggest audience. I know there's been a problem with monetizing wrestling stuff on YouTube, which at the moment isn't a huge issue because I'm trying to build up. All I'm trying to do is promotion. I'm trying to build up a fan base, but at some point I'd like to be doing True Grit as my job, and it'd be nice to be
get paid for it.
Essentially, I could get paid enough for it, so and run it. So whether I can do that on YouTube at some point or not, I'm not sure. Maybe we have to build up the audience and then transition some sort of on-demand service. But hopefully, there's a way to do it so we can build up so we have a proper seasons. It's not TV, it's computer really, but I call it True Grit TV.
In this day and age, YouTube is I would class YouTube as a TV channel.
Yeah, so. But what I always want, even as a kid, because I always wanted to be a wrestler, but one of the things I always did as a kid was I wrote my own wrestling shows, and I had my own little Hasbro wrestling ring, and I'd write it all down, and I'd book and I'd rewrite WWF as well. I'd watch it, and I'd be because I was always a Marty Jannetty mark. I preferred him to Shawn Michaels, so I'd always trying to write him. And in '96, I always used to get so annoyed. I was like, "Oh, he's with Leif Cassidy," and everyone just thinks it's a joke. And I'd try and write he would become a main player again. But
they did give him lots of chances, in fairness. But I remember reading Shawn Michaels' book once, and I think they fired him and hired him about 11 times in the space of 5 years or something.
Obviously, when I was younger, I didn't realize that. I was like, okay, so maybe there were reasons where it's unfair though, because there's always a joke who's the Marty Jannetty of the team, and Marty Jannetty was such a good wrestler. If anyone actually is the Marty Jannetty of their team, it's okay, you're an amazing wrestler. But it's said as almost like a jokey slur because Shawn Michaels was so good. It's it's unfortunate that you're one of the most amazing wrestlers ever, but you happen to be tagging with the best wrestler ever.
One of definitely a lot of people top 5.
Who's your top 5? This will be a good
top 5 is
Might change over the years, actually, definitely.
My top 4 generally stays the same, but my 5th one alternates depending, I think, on my mood. But I've got 2 of them on my leg. I'm working on a tattoo leg piece, and I've got 2 on my leg already. And when it's finished, I'll have all 5. 2 on my leg are Steve Austin and Macho Man Randy Savage.
Good ones.
Eddie Guerrero's going on.
Good one.
Brian Pillman's going on. And then it's the 5th one. I always kind of, although I'm going to stick. I did this episode. We did an episode a few weeks ago where we discussed our top 5s, current day and ever. And I went left field and I put Mick Foley into my top 5. Because I stated my argument was he brought. I can't think of the word. He re-energized the Undertaker in '96, '97. At that point, the take was I think the curve was going down. Mankind came in, it pulled him back up again. He made Austin ready to be world champion with the whole dude love stuff, and then some of the Mankind stuff afterwards. He made The Rock into a bastard of a champion, into the biggest heel. He then got Triple H ready to be the biggest heel in the company. With the Captain Jack angle, and then he gave credibility to Edge and Orton through the hardcore stuff. And for me, that's just. And then if you look at what he did in ECW with the Uncle Eric stuff, being the hardcore wrestler, his Cactus Jack stuff with Vader and Sting. I think the guy's very overlooked. And for that argument alone, I was like, I'm going to put him on my top 5.
I'd put him in my top 5. Yeah, so I'd put Austin in there. I'd probably put Austin as number 1 because he's such a good wrestler, but he's also of all the iconic wrestlers Hogan, The Rock, I guess Andre the Giant, the ones that transcended wrestling. He's one of, but he's actually put on fantastic matches as well. I don't think you can put the likes of Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and maybe Ric Flair don't quite fall in that icon status where the whole world was fans of them at one point. Whereas I think Austin's one of the true good like wrestler workers, whatever you want to call them, who actually did that. So that was mine. And for me personally, like I was like sort of 15 or something when he was coming in. So I just thought it was so cool, like his character, like the badass thing. So I always used to put Shawn Michaels as my number two. I think he's one of the best wrestlers ever. Like done some of my favorite matches with him. Um, some like the first Hell in the Cell with Undertaker was incredible. Some of his WrestleMania matches, amazing. I love the one again. We're talking about Mankind before in '96. That one is one of my favorite matches ever. Was the I'm a match with. Not everyone likes it, but I like that with Bret Hart. But as I've grown older, and at one point he wasn't even in my top five, but I put, I think I might prefer him. Sure, now is Bret Hart, because now, like when I watch it back, I'm just like every match he does, I really like it, and he's in so many of my favorite matches, like Austin, um, the WrestleMania match, the storyline he did with Owen Hart. He was like the he got. I suppose Shawn Michaels did as well, but that he got a brilliant match with Diesel, and so did Shawn Michaels around the same era. Actually, like that one they had at Survivor Series, but his ones with British Bulldog. Like I think there was a period in the '90s where it was like every year it was like the best match was someone against Bret Hart. Like even like starting
Piper, his match against Piper at WrestleMania 8.
Yeah, that was 92. So if you think about it, 91, Mr. Perfect, has got to be one of the best of that year. 92, Roddy Piper. Oh no, 92, Roddy Piper and British Bulldog match.
Yeah.
93, what was it? He was doing Yokozuna and Jerry Lawler. So he may not have had the top one in that year. He did also, King of the Ring performance was fantastic.
The King of the Ring. 94 was Owen Hart, wasn't it?
Owen Hart, that was one of the best. Although I might actually prefer the ladder match with Shawn and Razor that year, because I just love that ladder match. But they're both fantastic. They're very different, aren't they? It's hard to call. 95, I'd say him and Diesel was probably the best match of that year. 96, either the Iron Man match or actually, no, I prefer
first match against Austin.
Yeah, I prefer. My favorite match that year is actually Michaels Mankind. Second is Bret Austin, and then third is probably the Iron Man match, I'd say. Yeah, and then '97, that was just fantastic year with when he did the whole. Oh, he had the Austin match at WrestleMania, and he had the whole like babyface in Canada heel and.
You had Canadian Stampede, didn't you, in '97?
Yeah, that's good.
Whole sort of.
So he's definitely in my top five. I'd put Mick Foley, Mankind in there because he was. I think he did. We've talked about him, just great matches anyway. Obviously the one with Shawn Michaels, he had some great ones with Austin. The Hell in the Cell, like whether you think it's just two big spots or not, it was still historically it changed the business. It was the reason why I'll tell you a quite awkward but funny story of Mick Foley if you want. So never meet your heroes. So basically, the reason I got into wrestling was because of Mick Foley. Like I read his book, and that was like I'd always wanted to be a wrestler, but that was the moment. I read it when I was about 17, 18. I was like, I need to find a wrestling school and do this because like it really inspired me, and that was really like the blueprint. And I think it's about because he was so good at like he was like say I wasn't the most athletic and stuff, and you're like I think a lot of people thought that as well. We probably get so many out of shape wrestlers in t-shirts, but I wanted to be one as well. A lot of people read Mick Foley's book, but so I got into I was like a huge fan of his. That was why I got into wrestling. Years later I was wrestling, but I was also running a school down in it was FWA if you remember that. And they had a school down in South London, and and I was offered the opportunity to have Mick Foley come and do a seminar at the school, which was amazing. I was like, wow, he's going to come and teach us. And because I ran the school, I was doing the training seminar with him. So he was using me as a crash test dummy. So I was like wrestling my hero, which was crazy. I've got it on DVD somewhere. But the whole day was like a nightmare. I'd borrowed my mate's car because firstly, I used to have a Ford KA, those tiny Fords. And I'd driven him to Coventry to this show. and had him next to me, like driving up there because he's so big. Every time
Wow.
I changed gear, I kept stroking his leg. I was like, I'm sorry, Mick. Sorry, Mick. And, like, and it was just really awkward because he was a nice guy. You could see like he was a bit uncomfortable in this tiny car. And so I borrowed my mate's 4x4 like Range Rover and went down, did this training seminar, and then it got clamped. So it was locked up the car, and I was like, oh shit, I've got to take him to this book signing that he's doing, which was up in, so it was down in Croydon. I had to get him up in Essex in like an hour, and the track, and we had an age. Oh, we had to borrow someone else. Someone else drove us because it had been clamped. So me and him were in the back of this tiny car again. I was like, sorry, mate, we're in a tiny car again. It was like, okay. And then we got to this, and this guy, I think he'd paid like God knows how much to have Mick Foley do his book signing at his place. He was going ballistic to the agent who had booked it through. And we got there. He's going mental, like shouting at me because I'm like Mick's handler. There's loads of fans there. I'm walking with Mick Foley, like, and everyone's going, "Oh, Mankind, Mick Foley!" Like, some people are angry because they've been waiting for out like ages for this guy. Like, all these fans just like shouting at us. And then finally we get him sat down, and the girl's really pissed off at me. Mick Foley's just like pissed off because he's been like driven around everywhere in a tiny car. He's been like rushed around. Now he's got fans mobbing him. He's late. He's probably hungry. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, we hear this voice like, "Hey, Mick Foley! Mick Foley, it's me! Hack!" And then Sandman's there, like from ECW, and he's pissed. And he just turns,
Oh,
he comes down, like, and I think, yeah, so he had been booked for this thing as well by the promoter, but he's just like hanging around, and I didn't know he was going to be there. And he just like barges through and sits down with Mick Foley, and he's pissed, like, "Mick, how you doing, man?" And they'd had a falling out on the tour a few days. The Sandman's pissed and like trying to like really be buddies with him. Because I wasn't there, but apparently they'd had a falling out on the bus because Sandman got drunk and Mick got annoyed at him. And then like all this happened, and I was like, oh man. But at the same time, I was like dealing with this, and my friend's dad was car is still clamped in Croydon, and I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do about that? And then I had to drive, and I don't know if you know the geography of London, but these places are all pretty far from each other. Like, so I went from Croydon to Essex, then I had to get him to Heathrow because he was flying out. So we drove. So the guy that I can't remember who it was, and it was another trainee wrestler, went to get his car, and suddenly I was left, just me and Mick Foley, like the first time, just stood next to each other waiting for this car. Mick's like looking really like disheveled, and I was like, right, this has been a tough day, but this is gonna be the last time. Like, it's just me and Mick, and I should let him know like that, like what he means to me, and like I got into wrestling because of him, and like he's been quite an inspirational figure. So I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna tell him. I went, "Mick, yeah, I know today's been tough, but I wanted to say like the reason that I got into wrestling was because I read your book and it meant so much to me. And yeah, I just want to say, yeah, thank you for that." And he just looked at me and he went, "Okay."
oh wow.
And then we stood there in silence for like 2 minutes, which felt like hours. And this guy
Wow.
came up with his crappy little car. And I was like, "Okay, mate, we'll get back in the small car and drive you to a hotel." Because I was pretty young then as well. And like,
Oh,
I was quite starstruck around him. And then we just got back, and I probably just made like awkward conversation with him that he didn't. Because in his defense, like, he'd been hanging around with me like the last few days and must have just thought I was a fucking idiot. And I guess like a lot of things had gone wrong, so I probably was. And then like I finally dropped him off. And then my mate's dad was like, I had so many missed calls and was like, "What's going on?" I had to come clean. Like, "I'm sorry, I need to go back to Croydon now and get it." So I had to go all the way back. I can't remember how much it cost, but I had to get it unclamped and like take it back to him. And I met my mate's dad, and I was like early 20s, and my mate said like my dad was so angry when he went to meet you, but he said when he met you, you looked so defeated that he just couldn't say anything bad to you. He was like, whatever I was going to say to him, he'd already had worse that day. So it was a very weird day because on one hand, like I met my hero, and it was like and I got to wrestle with him, and it was like really cool experience to be a part of. But on the other hand, like it was like I just got battered from pillar to post that day, and like, and I had that really awkward moment, like stood on this street in Essex, like with Mick Foley waiting for this crappy car that he didn't want to be in, and I just told him really awkwardly how inspirational he was, and he just didn't give a shit. And he actually said to me, and like, actually, he was quite funny with it, but on the way back, he was like, yeah, working for Vince wasn't so bad actually. And he got a job back on with WWE like a few months later, and I was like, I can't help but feel partially responsible for that. He was just being like, yeah, the indies are shit.
I'm not doing that again. No, get me back.
Yeah, it was fun.
Awesome.
I used to do the death matches in Japan, but now I'm doing this bullshit in England with this idiot who got his car locked. Can I be on Raw, general manager, please? I make Foley. Oh, and number 5, who again, I probably is a more recent addition in recent years, but I think is just one of the most all-round packages in terms of like good matches, good storytelling, great character is Kurt Angle. I just think he's done so many good matches, and I love the way he can just flip from being like a really dorky character to suddenly like flipping, like doing really good matches.
I will absolutely just destroy you, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think yours were great as well. Eddie Guerrero is definitely, is a nearly top 5 one for me. Fantastic. Triple H, would probably be in my top 10. I sometimes like he's done some great stuff in wrestling, but then there was a period in wrestling when I didn't really enjoy watching him. So I perhaps
2002, 2003, when he was kind of on his one-man mission to destroy everyone.
Yeah, but I do really like his. Oh, another one who I would maybe flips between, in the top 5 almost is Undertaker again, because he's he's done so much. He's like iconic. I used to love him when I was a kid, but he's done so many, and he constantly evolved. But again, probably just missed it because, and probably no fault of his own, but he's done so many crappy matches in his time. But I think he was put in with the difficult spots, wasn't he?
That's it. You've got for every Shawn Michaels at Mania, you've got a Giant Gonzalez at WrestleMania 9.
I know.
So it's kind of like,
I love that as a kid, though. In fairness, Giant Gonzalez, I remember thinking was it was like amazing.
These furry patches, like what the hell, big monkey man.
It was weird. I guess the other one I would have put in when I was younger, like Hulk Hogan was like the reason I got into wrestling originally. But rewatching him when you're older, you're like, oh man, like some of these matches are not, they're not the best, but but it is good. I watched because I've been rewatching all the Raws and Nitros. I've just got to 97, so I watched Starcade for the first time actually with Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan.
Yes, that's why when Piper wins it, but he doesn't win the belt, does he?
Yeah, it's weird.
Title match, and then it's not.
Yeah, that's stupid. But I really like the spectacle of it, and it's actually, I think it's a far better match than people give it credit for. Like I actually really enjoyed it. Even now watching it, I enjoyed it. I guess Roddy Piper and Macho Man would be nearest top 10 as well. Macho Man's probably, he probably falls in that same category actually as Austin, where he was iconic. I think his thing was he was always just second to Hogan, so maybe that was like or second to
He
Hogan.
was a small guy in comparison, though. In WWE at the time, WWF at the time. Obviously, now he'd be normal size, quite big, but he was in the land of giants. He was quite a small guy in comparison to most of them. So I think that sort of speaks volumes that he was able to transcend that and become a massive star, kind of thing.
Yeah, and he was a star, but he was also a really good wrestler, and he's one of the few icons that, and he probably was iconic in a way. Like everyone knew about Macho Man at one point, didn't they? And Roddy Piper, I suppose, he did too. Like, 'cause he was in big films. Well, like, They Live is a huge film, isn't it?
Oh yeah, everybody knows Piper. Yeah, I mean, if you say Macho Man to one, they're just gonna go, "Ooh, yeah." Even like non-wrestling fans would just do the Macho Man thing. Even if they just take the mick out of him from Spider-Man.
Sorry?
Even if they just take the mick out of him from the Spider-Man film.
Yeah, I like that thing that's shared on Facebook. It's like, Macho Man, one of the best actors of all time. He spent like 30, 40 years as a professional wrestler just to prepare for his role acting in a Spider-Man. Like, he's the best method actor of all time. I think it's silly. I hope your fans like 90s wrestling and 80s wrestling, because we've talked about that a lot.
I think we generally sort of we do sort of episodes sometimes where we do like spotlights, and I tend to focus a lot on the '90s wrestlers kind of thing. Go back and watch old matches. So
Oh,
yeah, I tend to sort of I
oh,
think
give
the
them on for one of those. I love that sort of stuff. Yeah.
yeah, man. We'll give it a we'll have to hook up again at some point. I'm gonna have to sort of put an end to this though because it's getting close to my editing
Okay.
limit.
Yeah.
I probably just realised the time. I was going for an hour. I think, yeah, we've topped it 120 here.
Okay.
But yeah, dude, this was an awesome chat. It just how quickly it's gone by speaks for that. I'd love to have you on again at some point just to sort of see how True Grip TV's getting on and before the next show. You say it was April, the next one in Leeds, March,
Next one
April?
is Leeds is 25th of March. That one's a True Grit Games. And then unfortunately we couldn't. I wanted to do one the end of June, but there wasn't space available at Left Bank. So the next one is August after that. And that one's it's the end of August. I can't remember the exact date, and then it's the end of November. So those ones are definitely happening, and we're definitely we've got 3 in Sheffield, which will be the True Grit TV recordings. I'd definitely recommend getting to those because it's a really good setup. And and I hope that Sheffield's not too far away from our Leeds fans to go to, because it's at the same venue where they do the PPW pursuit where Liam has his wrestling school. But if you've seen the videos, it's a really professional setup, and it just is great for. It has like that studio feel. So we only get about sort of 60. We had about 60, 70 in there, but it was full, but it was a really good atmosphere, and it gives the smaller shows. It's great.
That kind of makes me feel like if you've watched the NWA Power since that came back, I
Yeah,
kind of get. I'm imagining something like that.
yeah. Yeah, I saw other because I think MLW do stuff like that as well, and I was like, okay, there is like this studio, and I guess during COVID people were doing that, and I was like, this sort of studio style wrestling I quite like because I've always wanted to have like a TV program and that with smaller shows and bigger shows to build up to.
Oh, it's definitely a market for it, man. To say hopefully, yeah, you can kind of hit the ground running now. You've got that sort of continuity back. There's not going to be any break to the rhythm. You'll just be flowing now for the rest of the year, and it'll just be momentum for you. Hopefully it'll just build and build.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm really pleased. Like this is the first show I've run in Leeds in years because we were actually doing York shows mainly before COVID. That was like our little hub. So this is like finally the return to Leeds. We might do if I can find a venue. That might actually be the one we do at the end of June if I can find a good York venue. So if anyone's watching this and you know of good York venues, then I am looking for one because the first one we did there no longer exists. It was a nightclub. And then we strangely did a school, but it was a great setup. But my contact there no longer works there. So I don't think the people working there are as keen on wrestling as he was. So if anyone knows anywhere in York, then yeah, I'm looking.
Because I like it. I always like a day out in York. It's my go-to place if I ever wanted just a day out.
Yeah,
So yeah, it gives me an excuse to go back to York.
we've got a fan base there actually. I know whenever I post stuff, I always get someone from York. Like when are you coming back to York? Because we did shows there for years. So I do want to do something for them. So I might do that one. Yeah, I might do that one late June if I can't because I don't think I can get Left Bank late June. So I might do it in York.
Sweet. Well, my birthday's in York as well. I'll make it two for. I'll go to York for my birthday and go watch wrestling.
Yeah, my birthday's in June. That's why I can't do it the first. It's actually my 40th this year. I'm getting old.
So
Yeah.
I think I'm 44 this year. So there you
Oh,
go. I'm heading.
yeah. I know. Middle age. What's happened? Still
Nice.
living wrestling though, and what do you call them? Thundercats on your hoodie.
Yeah, I'm still a bit kid
I
at
just
heart.
love them.
So I've got that. I've got the. I'm just covered in comic book stuff. I've got Joker on my arm.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm big.
So yeah, it's the last thing.
Did you like the most recent Joker films. It was obviously a bit different.
Yeah, that's what that one is.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I love that. That was one of my favorite films of that year. I thought it was incredible.
It was awesome. It didn't need to be a Joker film for me. It could have just. I think that was a very lazy title to get people's attention. It could have just been about a guy's mental health and his decline.
Oh,
He wasn't the Joker for me.
maybe you have read more comic books than me because I liked the fact it was Joker, so I didn't have a problem with that, and I really liked seeing a bit of the backstory, and it made him more real. So I did like the fact it was a Joker, and it probably drew people in like me to watch it. So I can see why they did it. Although I've heard rumors, I don't know if it's a joke. Maybe it's a joke. The next one's a musical, or there's going to be a musical element to it.
Okay. Well, Harlequin's meant to be in it, so it wouldn't surprise me. They're meant to be introducing Harlequin into it, from what I've
Right.
heard.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
I don't know if it was. Maybe it's like singing elements, or maybe I've seen something and maybe it's a piss take. I don't know if, yeah, maybe I'm gullible. I've seen something on
no,
that.
the thing is though, I think anything's fair game when it
Yeah.
comes to like a Joker film. Joaquin Phoenix obviously has got a history with. I did like Walk the Line. The dude can sing, he can play. You know, he's quite musical.
Oh, I do
Uh,
like Walk the Line. That's, yeah, a really good film actually.
it wouldn't surprise me if they kind of incorporate that. Just maybe like just mental sort of like out of body kind of Joker
Yeah.
moments.
I hope they don't ruin it, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it's
Yeah.
like. Anyway, I'm keeping you. It's gone on way
No,
too long.
it's fine, dude. No, literally, obviously, yeah. I could talk about this for ages, but
Done a real deep
want
dive
to,
into all sorts.
dude. Yeah, I think we've got for hours. I think this could be like the first of an ongoing series. In fairness, we just talk wrestling and films. You want to plug your socials? You got True Grit stuff. You
Yeah.
want to?
So yeah, True Grit Wrestle on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And True Grit Wrestling is where you can find True Grit TV. So I have a separate playlist for all the True Grit TVs on there. And we've got 6 episodes. And shortly after this weekend, we've got True Grit Redemption if Leeds. If you haven't got your ticket,
Get it soon.
definitely buy it now. I imagine more have gone during this podcast because every time I check it, it's going up. There's literally, yeah, 20, maybe less than that left now. So buy, because it's, yeah, we can't have any more in.
Oh.
Yeah, we sold out the seat. We actually sold out the. I didn't think we were going to get more than the seats, so I had to do an extra allocation. I was like, "Can we have people standing?" And they were like, "Yeah, okay, we can't have more than this amount." So that's why, yeah, we had to introduce the standing ones later. But
I'm
yeah,
glad you
really
did
good,
because
really happy.
I wouldn't have had a ticket otherwise. So, dude, genuinely, yeah, it's been an awesome. It's been a blast talking to you. Good luck for Saturday. I will be there. I'll be vocal. I'll be cheering them on. Legitimately looking forward to it. It's going to be an awesome show, and yeah, hopefully I'll catch up afterwards and
Yeah, fantastic.
talk
I'll
about the
try and
next
say
one.
hello. If I don't, it's not me being rude.
Oh
It's
yeah, no. Busy,
me
busy man.
stressed out.
I tend to stay out of people's way if I see what shows anyway. So I know it's going to be stressed. I'm not getting involved in this. So, but yeah, dude, it's been awesome. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me on. Yeah, appreciate it.
Start, mate. Right, I'm just going to stop the recording and I will say thank